We just finished another conference. This conference was the part of the COP18, the climate change negotiations in Doha, where we try to bring the complex issue of agriculture and forests onto the agenda. But in principle, it doesn't really matter what the subject is of a conference. No matter what conference, very often people nowadays, they are somewhere convinced that we should have social media as part of it. That's a given fact. You know, when 10 years ago, people had conferences, they did a press release, they did a press meeting, a press briefing, and that was about it. As social media came in, they started to use social media to bring out the links of content from the conference, or to make some publicity. We call it using social media for advocacy. That's really using social media as a tool for publicity, a publicity tool. That's like, it started 2-3 years ago, but that is already really old-fashioned. But we really to be able to bring people together and to work on one common project, specifically youth, because youth are the future of the world. Youth are also the future of agriculture. If we don't have young people farming, tomorrow we're not going to have any food anymore. So we bring people, young people together, use social media as a project to bring young people together to report from this conference, which is good for them because they come as a team, they have a voice in the conference as youth. They also work together on a project, they get to know each other, they form a whole dynamic around social media, around this conference. So this conference then, or any conference that we use this mechanic, becomes a much longer lasting than this blip of one day conference and then it's over. That's the old-fashioned way to do it. We use social media to spread this out from a week before to 2 weeks after. But creating this dynamic, this media dynamic, but also the group, especially around social media, that we have created around it, stays together and then kind of moves from one conference to the other conference, and not only on conferences, but you know, they help each other in putting up blogs and Facebook. They start using social media and the online media for their own work, and that's really the cool thing about using this conference as a tool. You know, we use it as a tool for people to get engaged, for young people to get engaged, for young people to come together and actually talk about their work. And that to us is the real cool thing about social media. Don't use it just as a tool, use it as a goal to work towards. For your reach. So first of all, when we talk about figures, you have to have you have to think about big differences between what is your reach, where is your impact. You know, it's very easy to talk only on numbers. Like people, you know, start to get really high on numbers, the number of web page visitors that they have. That doesn't really mean anything unless if those people that you reach are also your target audience. Now, for most of the conference that we do, we're able to scope out what is our target audience and target them for our social media outreach. Now, for this conference, for instance, which was 2 days, we reached every single day. We reached about 650,000 people via Twitter. We did live webcasting from all of the sessions, and we had per day about between 600 and 800 people that followed us. This means that actually the participation of the people off-site who could not necessarily afford to come here, in this case to Doha, Qatar, that the participation of off-site people was higher than the number of people that actually were on-site. And this is a recurring phenomenon. But not only that, we use social media as a way for people also to engage. So it's not just here is the webcast, here you can see and watch what's going on live in this room, but we use social media where people can actually give comments, they can ask questions, they give questions to the panel, and we build it in the facilitation of the conference. When there are questions coming in online, that we bring it over to the panel as if the people who are sitting at home in Burkina Faso, in Australia, in Timbuktu, are almost physically participating in the room. And that's again the power of social media. You can't do this any other way. But you're going to tell the guy in Timbuktu to say, please call me over here in Qatar, it's not going to work. But if he has Twitter, it works. People often think, when you say I work on social media, that it's okay, there is this dude sitting at the end of a conference room, you know, doing a bit of Twitter or doing a little bit of Facebook. But you can do that. That's fine. But then you're just going to generate a little bit of noise and that's it. You're going to be like Halley's Comet without the tail. What we're trying trying to do is build a momentum from before the conference and after the conference. But if you want to do that, it takes a bit of effort. Typically, when we do conferences, we start minimum 2 months before. We do an appeal online through our networks, through our website, through our blogs, through Twitter, through Facebook, asking for the good and the willing. Who is volunteering to participate? When we do this, there is nobody who's paid. So we get volunteers in. Typically, when we do a conference, you get anything between 50 and 150 people together. You bring them together as a volunteer and you make them work together on a project around the conference. So you give them content, what this conference is all about, and you ask them to write blog posts about it. Once they wrote blog posts, you ask them to tweet about it on Facebook, etc. This way, the volunteers learn not only your content, but they also learn the tools that you want to use in the conference, and they also can learn from each other, they can help each other. And everybody can always contribute. I mean, blog posts don't have to be perfect. And we teach people how to write almost perfect blog posts. But everybody can also contribute, because you have somebody speaking Russian, you have somebody who speaks Arabic, somebody who speaks French, Spanish. So you can ask them to work together to translate posts or to write multiple posts. You can bring in people who can learn from each other to how to make videos, how to make podcasts. Somebody might be a perfect blogger, but he has never used Twitter. Then use him and match him or her together with somebody who can just do the opposite. You know, somebody that maybe knows how to tweet perfectly, but not how to blog. And that way, you create this dynamic within the team. And at a certain point you will feel that the team is boiling. It's like you put a pot of soup. A pot of soup you do not make in 1 hour. When I make soup spread over 2 months' time. So I get the ingredients, I get my volunteers, I put them together in the soup, you know. They don't mix, you know, so you put them something, you stir them up as a moderator for the social coordination team, and then you make them work together. Once they start working together, they will start, especially if they're young people, the soup is going to start to move. You're going to see the parts moving and it's going to start boiling, and you keep that going all the way up to the conference. So that typically takes us, and just like a soup, you don't put it on a high fire, you put it on a small fire, you increase the fire, you know, until it's really boiling. The boiling point, that has to be the conference. Not earlier, not a week earlier, not 2 months earlier, not a month earlier, but the moment that the conference is ready, the pot has to be boiling. Your volunteers have to come, they have to be super enthusiastic, they have to be at the peak of their enthusiasm, and then you use that during your conference as your social media team to bring out the enthusiasm they have inside of them, spark off within the conference, and bring that to the outside world using social media. And then you gradually cool down your soup, and you see then who wants to eat it. You will have, if you have a group of 100 volunteers working in a conference, you might have 20 or 30 that want to continue to work together in the next conference. And this is what we've basically done since about, I worked with CGR for about the last year and a half, almost 2 years, on conferences. We started very small, smaller conferences with smaller groups, 10, 20 volunteers, and gradually grew. Why? Because we were able to take the volunteers, the good and the willing, from one conference to the next conference to the next conference. We started 2 years ago with a share fair in Addis Ababa. Then we went over to, if I remember well, to an event around the hunger in the Horn of Africa, in Nairobi. Then we took volunteers from there and we took them over to Rio Plus 20, the big conference in Rio de Janeiro. We took people from there and we brought them over to the Global Conference for Agriculture Research for Development in Uruguay, where we had a great team of about 130, 136 people. And again, from there we took volunteers over to this conference here, where we had a group of about 110, 120 people, but many of them had worked with us before in other conferences. So trying to get that momentum going. And these are all people that believe in social media, also people that gradually start to know the content, you know. For us it is agriculture research for development. So it doesn't take us very long to bring them up to speed, but they also have been working together. Say, hey Miriam, you know, I haven't seen you said, oh Sophie or Emmy, you know, and you know, immediately that spark is there, and it becomes so much easier to continue to work in the same spirit.